Well, for the first time this year, I think I can say without hesitation, it's a barn burner. At least it feels that way to me. We want to continue speaking about our series in the book of Esther that we've entitled Death, Despair, and Deliverance. What's it going to be? It's a great mystery as it unfolds, but God is in control. As we have observed, the book of Esther does not contain the name of God at all, but God is everywhere in the story of Mordecai and Esther, two people that God put in an integral place in history that stood in the gap between the Messiah coming and Messiah not coming, because Haman had plotted to kill all the Jews. That would have included all the ancestors of Jesus Christ had he succeeded. But thanks be to God, he did not succeed. And so, as we have been observing, Mordecai, a very, very dedicated and righteous man, loved his daughter, but she wasn't his daughter. She, in actuality, was her much younger cousin. Her parents were dead, and he looked after her safety and every possible need that she had, up to and including taking her in as his own daughter. And every day, the Bible says, he looked after her. The king had severed ties with his queen Vashti because she did not appear before his governing and military officials. And so she exited the stage. And it was decided that the King Xerxes the first, as he's known in history, would choose a new queen from amongst all the beautiful women of the government officials and military officials, and from a selection of virgins of all the 127 provinces of the Persian Empire that went from Egypt to India. Uh, the Persians controlled the entire known world at the time. And Xerxes, in the third year of his reign, had a great party that lasted for 6 months. And everybody that was anybody in the kingdom came to that party. And when Vashti parted ways with the king, it was decided that the most beautiful woman in the kingdom would be chosen to be the new queen. And it was a very complex process. All the chosen women of the kingdom, thousands and thousands of them, I am sure, would be taken into the harem of the king in Susa, which was the winter palace of the kings of Persia, and there for a year be prepared for the beauty contest of beauty contests. And all these women in a group were paraded before the king, and then he would then choose certain ones that he would choose from to be his new queen, as it turns out. And as we spoke of this morning, no accident, Esther was chosen. And Mordecai looked after her needs every day in every possible way. He had urged her not to reveal to anyone who she was. You see, she was a Jew. Jews were slaves. They were captives in a strange land. They did not have the rights of citizens. They were a secondary group at best. And Esther was her Persian name. And her Persian name meant that she was like the goddess Ishtar. But Esther was instructed by Mordecai not to say anything about who she really was. And she didn't. And the hand of God was in all of this, and she was chosen. So this is where we pick up this evening in verse 19 of chapter 2 of Esther. Now, when the virgins were gathered together the second time, Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate. Esther had not made known her kindred or her people, as Mordecai had commanded her. For Esther obeyed Mordecai just as when she was brought up by him. In those days, as Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate, Bigthan and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs who guarded the threshold, became angry and sought to lay hands on King Xerxes. And this came to the knowledge of Mordecai, and he told it to Queen Esther. And Esther told the king in the name of Mordecai. When the affair was investigated and found to be so, the men were both hanged on the gallows. And it was recorded in the book of the Chronicles in the presence of the king. There's a number of things that we should consider in this passage. First of all, we should make note that Mordecai, being a righteous man, not only took care of Esther, but from childhood had instructed her in the ways of God. And the Bible says that Esther obeyed Mordecai in all that he had commanded her from her youth until that very moment. He was more of a father to her than her mother and father in the flesh were. Not that they were evil people. We don't know anything about them, except they were dead. And Mordecai, being a righteous man, took her in and brought her up as his own daughter. And he didn't just take care of her, he instructed her in the ways of God. And she obeyed. And Mordecai was a wise and, shall we say, quiet man. One thing that we can see here in this passage about Mordecai is that he was a listener. He listened intently and spoke almost never. But when he spoke, his words had great weight. Apparently, most of the words that he spoke were to Esther, to take care of her and protect her and guide her, because she's in a den of iniquity. She's been imprisoned in a harem. Women who are concubines, women who are enslaved because of their beauty for the pleasure of the king. They have no rights, no privileges. Oh, yes, they're well taken care of with their food and their drink and with their cosmetics and their clothing, and they have a lot of attention paid to them, but they can't go outside of this place. And so Esther is in the, shall we say, the semifinals. And in the semifinals, she is chosen to be the new queen. And she's commended, as we saw this morning, when she came into the king's presence, she brought nothing other than what her eunuch had told her to bring. He was a person that saw great hope in this woman, and he looked after her, as did Mordecai, and instructed her on what she was to bring into the king's presence and not. We don't know what those things were or weren't, but the important part is that she listened to Mordecai and she listened to this eunuch who's in charge. She wanted to make sure that she lived in such a way as to bring honor to God, to bring honor to Mordecai, and bring honor to herself, and bring dishonor to no one. She was a humble person and a quiet person, just like Mordecai. Well, it turns out that Mordecai, we don't know exactly what position he had, in a very important position. He did something on the king's behalf at the gate of the palace. It's very interesting. I saw it on Google Maps. They have, in recent years, unearthed this palace in Susa. And it's huge complex. And they've discovered inside this complex a relief showing a carving or a likeness of King Xerxes. They were these reliefs that are found in the ancient world, are much like photographs are today. It was the closest approximation people had so that people could see in present and future times what the king looked like. And so he is not unknown historically, he's not unknown architecturally, he's not unknown archaeologically. He is best known, as we have stated, for his great defeat at the Battle of Salamis. He crossed over into Europe and attacked the Macedonians and the Greeks and won a great land victory at Thermopylae and actually captured and burned the city of Athens. But the Greeks resorted to their strength, and their strength was not on the land but on the sea. And so the greatest naval battle in the history of the world up to that time took place at Salamis in the Aegean Sea. And the Greeks destroyed the navy of the Persians. They weren't defeated on land, but Xerxes was fearful that he would be cut off. So he and his whole army retreated back to Persia. And this was the beginning of many, many, many decades of conflict between the Greeks and the Persians, which ultimately led to the downfall of the Persian king at the hands of Alexander the Great. But those times are not yet present. But needless to say, Xerxes the Great is the most powerful man in the world. And not anybody could have access to him. Very, very few could have access to such a king. And so not only were people screened to enter into the royal city of Susa, they were screened even more at the palace gate of the king, where the king lived, in the winter palace of the Persian kings in Susa. And this is where Mordecai finds himself. He's either a guard or he is some kind of screener or some kind of passport inspector. I don't know. We don't know. But he was a very important man. He decided, among others, I'm sure, who got in to the palace and who was denied. Well, in the course of his duties, as we had stated before, he's a listener. And he listens at the gate one day, and he hears two other important officials in the government talking. Bigthan and Teresh. They were two of the king's eunuchs. You see, in those days, if you're dealing with the affairs of the king would not want any kind of competition when it came to his harem. And so if you served the king in a close capacity, you had to become a eunuch, and these two guys are eunuchs. Well, they all were in the job there guarding the threshold, guarding the gate to the palace. Something happened. We don't know what happened, but something happened that made these two very angry at Xerxes. So you might say, well, how angry did they get? Well, they got angry enough to plot an assassination of the king. Well, Mordecai, being a great man, loyal to God. See, I want to just stop here. What does loyalty to God mean in the life of Mordecai? Mordecai is a slave. And he honors God by honoring those who have enslaved him, honoring those who have taken away his identity, honoring those who have taken away his nationality, honoring those who've taken away his religion. He is in a land where he cannot access the temple. And yet, he understands why the Jews are there in Persia. And he honors God by honoring those who had rule over him. And that specifically was King Xerxes. Now, many might say, well, he would be delighted to keep quiet and not say anything, knowing that the king would soon be dead that oppressed him. Well, not Mordecai, because he was a humble and honorable and upright man, dedicated to honoring God. And in this season, honoring God meant honoring the Persians. And so what does Mordecai do? Well, he told Esther, who is now queen, Esther, I have heard a conspiracy at the gate of the palace. Two of the king's most trusted eunuchs, Bigthan and Teresh, are plotting to kill the king. And I wanted to warn you, Esther says. Well, as of course would always be the case, such an accusation had to be fully examined. And when it was fully examined, it was determined beyond a shadow of a doubt that these two indeed planned on murdering the king. And so they were hung on the gallows as traitors. And Mordecai was the one who intervened on Xerxes' behalf and saved him by warning Esther, who then warned the king. This was a great patriotic honor. So much so that the event was recorded in the official chronicles of the Persian Empire, etched as it were in stone. They would take these clay tablets of moist clay, and they would take a stylus and they would write these chronicles in them. They would be dried, and then they would be put in the official library of the king as an official record. And so that is what happened. There's no mention of a reward. There's no mention of anything other than Mordecai warned the king through Esther. It was investigated. These two traitors were executed, and the record of it was put in the records of the king. And as we will soon see, for a very specific purpose. You see, when people do good, God always rewards good, but he may not do it immediately. He may not do it in a way that makes sense to any of us, but it will always be to the glory of God. So I want us to just take a look at a couple of things that are very important for us as Christians in way of an application. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. All of us who have been involved in the workaday world have experienced plots where people have devised evil schemes against other people, thinking that perhaps if I can drag this one down, I can climb up over their destroyed reputation and make my way to the top myself. Sometimes it's far more personal. People plot against other people in the workplace because they literally hate the other person for whatever reason. Doesn't matter. Mordecai should serve as an example for us all in the workplace. That is, regardless of who does what to us, we should honor God by honoring those who have charge over us, irregardless of whether or not that person is worthy of our honor. You see, in Satan's way, honor should be bestowed only to those who deserve it. Well, that person deserves honor. That person doesn't. And you, Satan says, are the judge whether to honor or dishonor this person. And not only is it not wrong in Satan's wicked way of thinking to plot against your boss or your fellow employee, it's actually good and righteous and to take care of number one. But that's not the way God has constructed his way. Jesus tells us to bless those who curse us and bless those who persecute us and bless those who maliciously treat us. So that's what Jesus did. That's what Mordecai did. He did not judge Xerxes. He was a pagan. Apparently, he was a wicked man in many ways. But it was not Mordecai's place to judge Xerxes. That was God's place. Mordecai said, I'm going to honor God and I'm going to honor the king, regardless of who he is or what he's done or what he may do. If God wants to do something with Xerxes, that's God's place and not mine. And second of all, we would be remiss if we did not mention that many times people become bitter because they do some great thing that should be recognized and honored, and it doesn't. One of the things we've all experienced in the workaday world where we've done some great project or done some great thing that is propelled our boss up the ladder, so to speak. And we don't get a reward. We don't even get a mention or a thank you. And if we're not careful, we'll become bitter. But Mordecai did not expect a reward, and he went on with his life as if the event never happened. It was just what God expected of him. It's what God expects of us all, to listen and to protect and honor those who are in charge of us, whether it's a king, whether it's a boss, or whoever it might be. We honor God by honoring those who are our head. That's the theme of Ephesians 5 in marriage. Children honor their parents. Wives honor their husbands. Husbands honor Christ, and Christ honors the Father. Everyone honors their head, because if we want to be honored by God, we first have to humble ourselves and honor those who are in charge of us, regardless what kind of person they are or what they may have personally done to us. It's not personal. It's not personal. It wasn't personal to Esther. It wasn't personal to Mordecai. Bitterness will kill you. Anger will kill you. Don't doubt God on this. There's these two men here. These two eunuchs. Their anger towards the king killed them. Oh, you might say it was the order of the king that killed them. No. It was their anger towards the king and plotting to kill him. That's what killed them. They're responsible for their own deaths, not someone else. At the end of life, we'll be called to give an account of all the deeds done in the flesh, whether they be good or whether they be evil, because those deeds are deeds that we chose to do or chose not to do, to honor or to dishonor God. Mordecai and Esther will stand tall in the judgment. Tonight, if there's anyone here who needs to reassess their relationship with God, won't you come as we sing to encourage you?